the turn of the new century, the beginning of the 1800s, those with imagination and vision ran smack dab into those who saw the world the way it had always been and always would be. And it was clear that if you were to question such a concept, you get a quick lesson in respecting your elders. A good example of this comes from a recent book by Joyce Appleby called Inheriting the Revolution, the First American Generation. It seems that a young lad named Ichabod Washburn, working in a cotton mill in Kingston, Massachusetts, was intrigued by the wooden cogwheels that were an integral part of the early power looms. He had heard much about a certain Samuel Slater in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, and thought that working for such a man would be beneficial to his future. However, his guardian uncle temporarily crushed that idea by stating in unequivocal terms that the country would be so full of factories that there would be no more need for machinery to be built. Hi, I'm Ranger Chuck Arning with the National Park Service, here in the John H. Chafee Blackstone River Valley National Heritage Corridor. And it is all about vision. That amazing skill allows us to see something that is not there and then to create it. And whether we're talking about the 1800s or the beginning of the 2000s, it is still a rare but very necessary skill. Not everyone is gifted enough or strong enough to possess it, to turn it into reality. A visionary and a doer. You know, you don't find those two characteristics in the same body very often. Yet here in the Blackstone Valley, we have a history of visionary men and women who walk the walk and talk the talk. So join me as we take a trip through the Blackstone Valley and meet some of these folks who turned our valley into the economic engine that drove our nation. And along the way, we might just find there's still a need for visionary doers today.
The Blackstone Valley has been home to a wide range of visionaries. Some of them had a very grand and profound vision, like Roger Williams and his concept of soul liberty, or Elizabeth Buffum Chase and her efforts to abolish slavery or secure the vote. Some of them have been very personal, kind of homely visions, one of sort of economic and personal freedom that's driven or drawn people to the valley for centuries. Right up to the present time. One of the visions that I think is the most common in the valley is a more practical vision, one that sort of focuses on making things work better or making them work in a way that people have never really thought of before. Sometimes there are entrepreneurial visions like John Brown and his concept of the Blackstone Canal, or Moses Brown and Samuel Slater and their idea of manufacturing cotton cloth in a factory with machinery. And of course their visions are based on the really technical visions of people like David Wilkinson, who could conceive of ways to make resistant materials of wood and iron and water and things like that come together in ways that would achieve things that people thought was miraculous. And of course we're doing that now with electronics and plastics and things that are too small for us to see with the naked eye. Those visions, ranging from the grand to the minuscule, have a way to remake our lives and our communities in ways that we don't always envision at the beginning. And even the humblest vision, or the most basic vision, has a way to really take us to places that we hadn't thought about. And indeed, some of the visions that we've been called upon to use have been the visions of people who see where things are sort of going the wrong way, or maybe not going at all, and call for a correction or a revitalization. I think here, for example, Zachariah Allen, who was one of those who was instrumental in putting factories throughout the state and putting people to work in the factories. And then when he realized that children were growing up without education, that cities were being choked by pollution and lacked parks and libraries and things like that, he decided that that was the kind of vision that needed to be articulated and achieved so that there was a shared sense of community, so that that earlier idea of a communal group that lived together and shared its dreams and goals wouldn't be sacrificed to the pursuit of perhaps a more mechanical or economic vision. And I think we today are sort of face those kinds of choices all the time. We're confronted with all kinds of opportunities, we're confronted by all kinds of problems. And it's recognizing which opportunities are the ones we should seize and which problems we really need to solve first is the vision that we sort of all need to agree upon, and we rely on those particularly articulate spokespeople to help us agree on that and move forward.
Hi, I'm Ranger Kevin Clybert from the John H. Chafee Blackstone River Valley National Heritage Corridor. And we're looking at some of the great innovators of the Blackstone Valley. You need to go no further than Zachariah Allen. With a fortune made, lost, and regained during the textile boom that swept the valley in the first half of the 1800s, Zachariah Allen was able to pursue a wide variety of interests. Some of these included mechanics, architecture, insurance, even fire prevention. He even took time to write a travelogue and an early thesis on solar power and energy. Zachariah Allen invested in his first textile mill at the age of 27. And like many of the people of his generation, he was greatly inspired by the textile boom that was happening all throughout Rhode Island. But Allen was even more interested in the machines that went and made those mills work. He loved machines and greatly respected those who could build and work with them. In his words, mechanics were a class of men whose professional labors led them necessarily to the knowledge and practice of natural and mechanical laws, which are the manifest revelation of the will of God. Like all great innovators, Zachariah Allen wanted to have information on the latest cutting-edge technology. So in 1822, just after building his first textile mill, Allen traveled to Europe to study the most modern manufacturing techniques. The machinery impressed him, but he was horrified by the conditions that the workers had to live in. Allen's dream was to take the American agricultural ideal and enhance it with little villages or hamlets which often appear to spring up as if by magic in the bosom of some forest around the waterfall which serves to turn the mill wheel. Now once he bought the village here at Georgiaville, Allen wanted to expand the mill, but first he needed more power. So he bought the rights to the grist mill, which was just upstream, just up the Woonasquatucket River a little ways. That way he was able to double the height of his dam to about 35 feet and triple the size of his mill pond to 122 acres. Power source in hand, it came time to build his mill. Now the perfect site for the mill was located on a flat meadow right next to the old mill site. However, this was over 100 yards away from the waterfall that was going to be the source of his power. Well, here Allen turned his mechanical mind to find a solution. He devised an entirely new system of creating horizontal shafting that ran for 389 feet to carry the power of the water wheel over to the mill to work the machinery here in Georgiaville. Allen now went about making the village more comfortable for his workers. Shade trees were planted along Georgiaville's streets, and a new chapel and school were built. He even built a park for his workers along the mill pond. And even today, Georgiaville Pond is a popular recreation spot for swimming, boating, and fishing. We still see many of the signs of the community that Zachariah Allen built here back over 100 years ago. And that massive mill he constructed back in 1853 is today used for housing, an innovation that Zachariah Allen certainly would have appreciated.
They were problem solvers, those who initiated the American Industrial Revolution. Challenged to find better ways to transport goods throughout the new nation, it was the visionaries who clearly saw that problems were indeed true opportunities. Let's see how this story of vision plays out throughout the Blackstone Valley and in one particular community. Because yes, it is all about vision. Vision. The art of seeing what is not there and then creating something new, something different. The Blackstone Valley was an incubator for men and women with vision. The development and progressive use of water power, the mechanization of the spinning of cotton, the creation of a factory in the banks of the Blackstone River with workers attuned to to the ringing of the bell rather than the rising of the sun. The start of the American Industrial Revolution. But this visionary view did not start on the banks of the Blackstone River. It expanded and grew, seizing upon problems, viewing them in a different light, and then turning them into opportunities. One central problem that is hard for the modern mind to grasp and fully understand in its complexity is the issue of time and travel. It is important to note that at the beginning of America's Industrial Revolution, the American farmer took his produce to market using the same methods and technology as the farmer did in the age of Julius Caesar. In 1800, the beginning of the new century, the ox-drawn cart was standard everyman transportation, and for most people, the idea of a new way of transporting goods was inconceivable. But John Brown of Providence was not most people. Where some saw rugged mountains and wild rivers, he saw a steady flow of goods to the farthest corners of New England. Vision.
Benjamin Bourne, Esquire. Dear Sir, the importance of inland navigation is of such magnitude that I hope, sir, you will not think me too troublesome on this business. A great number of valuable articles such as timber, wood, stone, ore, coal, etc., at greater distance than 20 miles from any market, cannot bear the expense of land carriage, and consequently must lie useless or be sold in the neighborhood at very low prices. I have in contemplation an important piece of business for the future growth of this state in particular, and for the interior parts of New England in general. That is, forming a company to be incorporated for the purpose of digging a canal from this town to the north and northwest parts of Massachusetts and New Hampshire, to the head or near of the Connecticut River, and in proper time to continue to the North River. Myself, your friend and very humble servant, John Brown.
It was a lack of vision, a parochial view of the world that killed the initial canal concept. Massachusetts, fearful of Boston becoming nothing more than an insignificant fishing village, chose to defeat the necessary canal legislation. While the concept of a canal from Providence to Worcester went into hibernation, the progress and success of the pursuit of manufacture did not.
If agriculture be the life's blood of the people, the arts of manufacture constitute the real independence of the nation. Levi Lincoln.
But ideas die hard. And the idea of a canal along the Blackstone River, from Worcester to Providence, Narragansett Bay, continued to roil in the imaginations of those with vision. The success of the Erie Canal reignited interest in the Blackstone Canal, and that interest would fundamentally change the Blackstone Valley and the hamlet of Worcester forever. The construction of the canal would bring the first of many immigrant migrations to the Blackstone Valley, for it was the Irish navies who would bring their canal building experience and build the canal. They also brought along their work ethic, their music, and their religion to the valley. The Irish would bring a strong Catholic presence to a very Protestant valley. The first Catholic church west of Boston was built in Worcester to satisfy the Irish navies and their families' religious needs. The Irish became a vital part of the expanding fabric of the Blackstone Valley. The canal they built would fast become the catalyst for a rapid period of expansion in the Blackstone Valley. But the expansion would be no more dramatic than in the village of Worcester. The canal generated tremendous enthusiasm, excitement, and for men of vision, made things once thought impossible, possible.
The increasing intercourse between this town and Providence will probably induce many people, especially businessmen, to take a Providence newspaper. The publishers of the Yeoman are agents for the Rhode Island American, a paper of established reputation.
The canal generated all sorts of opportunities. For the communities along the canal, the opportunity to export their wares north, up the canal was strong. Casks of lime from the village of Lime Rock, corn, molasses, groceries, log wood, sweet potatoes from the farms and fields of the Blackstone Valley. And then there was iron, lead, cotton, leather, plaster, oil, and cherry lumber from the docks in Providence. And the goods and material flowing down the canal represented the wealth and ingenuity of not only Worcester, but from the entire center of Massachusetts. The canal became a new way of doing business. The success of the canal was so evident to the multitude of the region that a group of citizens in the northern part of Worcester County, bordering New Hampshire, placed ads in the Worcester newspapers advertising a meeting to discuss the extension of the Blackstone Canal to Fitchburg. Despite problems of drought, ice, sabotage, the profitability of shorter runs out of Providence, and extensive litigation, mostly over water rights and usage, the growth that took place in Worcester was beyond belief.
The loading and unloading of boats, the arrival of teams with freight to put on board them, and the constant passing of trucks with goods brought by boats to be delivered at different places in town presented a scene of bustle and activity in the vicinity of the head of the canal.
Technology can be a cruel partner. The same economic opportunities that led to the canal's success also led to its downfall. A consistent, reliable system of transporting goods became a standard business requirement. The canal's seasonal limitations would no longer do. A new technology emerged, the railroad. It ran in drought, it ran in snow and ice, it ran year-round. Suddenly, the energy to build a canal was replaced with the energy to build a railroad. Speed, lower costs, dependability, and the ability to reach deep into America's hinterland made the railroad the engine that drove America's growing economy. The ability to receive various raw materials in the ship-finished product made Worcester's central location a magnet for railroad growth. And there was also the issue of time. In 1830, it took 7.5 hours on a good day for a stagecoach to travel between Worcester and Boston. With the completion of the railroad in 1835, that ride was just 3 hours. The impact on the business community was immediate.
As the railroad has displaced all other modes of transportation to the city, I shall not be able to send the pig to any other place in the city than the freight depot. It will arrive Wednesday. Stephen Salisbury II.
The railroad gave the industrialists the ability to seemingly tame time. By 1850, 24 trains would arrive and depart daily, making Worcester a hub of activity. Throughout the Blackstone Valley, a sense of things being on the move was prevalent. Mills and their companion mill villages grew rapidly. Industry expanded in the manufacture of all manner of textiles and the intricate equipment needed to create those textiles. Wire rope was turned into barbed wire and wire for fashionable hoop skirts. And the manufacture of tools, just about anything that could be made, was made, and even some items that had not even been thought of yet. The patent office in Worcester County was one of the busiest in the country. The key to understanding the growth in Worcester is seen through the vision of a few men. These men, the Stephen Salisburys, the William Merrifields, did not manufacture anything. They created opportunity for others to manufacture. They built mills, provided those mills with power, and then rented them out at reasonable prices. Today, we refer to such operations as incubators. The concept isn't new. In 1831, Ichabod Washburn got a start in the wire drawing business in just such an incubator.
I have leased all my stores. The work of my building mills is thus far very satisfactory, for which I am content with the rent, the tenants deem it favorable, and both the mills are filled with good business. Stephen Salisbury II.
The development of these industrial incubators allowed for the fledgling industrialists to develop their ideas, to try things out, experiment. There was a skilled and talented workforce. These mechanics, not only proficient in their industrial knowledge, but with the encouragement of their employers, they also sought to stimulate their intellectual growth. Lyceums, conventions, the Mechanics Association and other such groups sponsored lectures that created an atmosphere of fresh ideas and a platform to debate them. The transportation revolution made Worcester the place to be. It drew the educated and the outspoken, and it drew those with a vision of a world of equality, on temperance, on the abolition of slavery, on women's rights.
In view of all these oppressions, this undervaluing of our labor, taking us from our right to choice in our industrial avocations, infliction of pecuniary dependence, shutting us from the trades and the learned professions, wresting from us our legal rights, denying us political equality, denying us free speech. We say that these and other usurpations demand our speedy remonstrance. Who would be free themselves must strike the blow. No matter if the yoke we wear is soft and cushioned, it is nevertheless a yoke. No matter if the chain is fastened by those we love, it is nevertheless a chain. Let us rise then in all the majesty of renewed womanhood and say, we must be free. Abby Price.
The region became a leader in both industrial might and progressive thinking. The impending war, the American Civil War, would test that leadership. As America descended into its crucible of fire, it needed workers, not only to keep the mills going, but also to fill the vacant jobs of those New Englanders who heard President Lincoln's call for Union volunteers. And who came to take their place? The French Canadians, the Germans, more Irish. They came and they stayed. The increasing demand for new workers grew as peace and the development of new worldwide markets brought America into the booming age of manufacturers, the Gilded Age. America became the land of opportunity. Eastern Europeans began finding their way to America and the Blackstone Valley. The Polish, both Catholic and Jew, Italians, Armenians, Lithuanians, and then the Swedes and Finns, the African and more. And it didn't stop there. New languages, new foods, new churches to support the newly arrived hopefuls sprang up all over the Blackstone Valley. These new people, mechanics, workers, brought new voices to the valley, as well as a new and different visions of what they hoped to make of their world. Each immigrant group would develop their own strategy on how to succeed in America. These voices were not always in unison. Ethnic tensions, local politics, fighting for a higher place in the social pecking order, and labor management issues all spilled over into the neighborhoods and streets of Worcester, Providence, and the rest of the Blackstone Valley. Along with these tensions were still more opportunities for visionary men to create. In 1883, in a small shop on the wrong side of the tracks in the island section of Worcester, built by young men who didn't know any better, a powerful company would emerge. Built on their ability to solve problems, these young men would participate in changing the world as they knew it. From bicycle sprockets to tough light alloys for the aerospace industry, the Worcester Drop Forge Works would become the Wyman Gordon Company. The ingredients for their success was the same as it was for many of the other companies that made it in the industrial Blackstone Valley: sticking to the vision and hard work. Yet despite the challenges of 2 world wars, changing technologies, and industrial migration in the South where land, material, power, and labor were all cheaper, the region of the Blackstone Valley, the cities of Worcester and Providence, managed to persevere. For those companies that made Worcester their home, they were able to connect to their historic legacy of Worcester's visionary industrialists and workers. One such company is the David Clark Company. It started out as a textile manufacturer, specializing in specially knitted materials. In 1935, there was not vocabulary in our dictionaries that would describe the products that David Clark would be known for around the world. The new century brings with it new challenges. Can today's leaders reconnect and utilize the rich vision and legacy of Worcester and the Blackstone Valley's industrial past to turn today's challenges into unlimited opportunities?
146 is the new front door for the city. And very few industrial cities get that opportunity to recreate their front door, to have a new boulevard, so to speak, coming into their city. And this is a magnificent opportunity for the city.
Here in the city of Worcester, many of us consider the Union Station as really the northern terminus of the Blackstone. And we're going to make sure that as people come into the city of Worcester from the south, they're going to come into a fantastic visitor center. We're going to actually build our future based on our heritage.
We're very excited in Worcester about the potential for the biking, the hiking, the canoes, and just the vistas of the river opening up again. And then there's also the economic development piece that we hope to revitalize, not only Quinsigamond Village, but Green Island, and then eventually right up to the Union Station area.
The village itself was immaculately clean. I remember on so many Saturday mornings, the neighbors and the residents washing their sidewalks. And you could always catch the aroma of delicious coffee. There's no one in the world that can make coffee like the Swedes.
This corridor project and opening up the canal and the Green Island will make the big difference. This will be the economic development that will drive this section of the city forward.
I happen to be a biker, and there's something that's really pleasant, comforting about riding along a riverway or along the ocean, and there is a reconnecting that takes place simply by virtue of the physical presence of that river.
The city of Worcester is ready to roll up its sleeves and make it happen again. And we're looking forward to being a very good partner with everybody along the Blackstone.
And what about the river? The Blackstone, the river that powered the American Industrial Revolution. 200 plus years of pollution, neglect, abuse. What about the river and its role in the future growth of the city and of the Blackstone Valley?
We say that we want to be the most livable city in the Northeast, and I think part of being the most livable city in the Northeast means to have a community that places a high value on the environment.
All communities have opportunities thrust upon them. What they choose to do or not to do with those opportunities is the difference between a community that is a great place to live and work and a community that's just a place to be from. The difference between such communities is their vision. Today, our challenge is clear. Our progress will be based upon our ability to build upon the innovation of those who've gone before, energized by their vision, challenged by their accomplishments, and steeped in our shared history. We go forth, true to our democratic principles of justice and equality, to build a better community. Not daunted by the task at hand, but accepting our responsibility to build a better world for our children and our children's children.